Welcome to the Marketing Millennials, the No BS Marketing Podcast. I'm Daniel Murray, and join me for unfiltered conversations with the brains behind marketing's coolest companies. The one request I tell our guests, stories or it didn't happen. Get ready to turn the up. We are back with another dose in our series called Marketing Medicine. Today, we're treating a serious condition in marketing, outdated marketing software. If you're dealing with tech that's more pain than gain, from engineering bottlenecks to data integration nightmares, this episode is for you. And to help us write the right prescription, we've got Jasper Martens, CMO at PensionBee. Jasper's been in the trenches of financial marketing for over 15 years, battling clunky systems and slow support. He's here to share his formula for migrating to a better platform without risking your results. Let's get into the cure for those software headaches. Okay, marketing bestie, I'm going to say something crazy. You don't need more customer data. You have the info. You just don't have the time or tools to actually use it to drive revenue or nurture customers. If that sounds like you need to visit Iterable. Iterable is an AI-powered platform for marketers that takes first-party data and delivers ultra-personalized messages for every marketing channel without the engineering lift. Iterable's AI features help build personalized campaigns fast, predict what your customers need, and fine-tune every message for your engagement, cutting busy work so you can focus on being creative. It doesn't matter whether you're using email, text, in-app, web, OTT, or all the above. It all works together seamlessly. Most importantly, Iterable is super simple. No coding skills needed. No wonder brands like Redfin, Priceline, Calm, and Morning Brew all use it to put their data to use. If you want to make your data work for you instead of the other way around, head to iterable.com/TMM. TMM for the marketing millennials. For helpful resources and sign up for a demo. That's iterable.com/TMM. All right. We're here with Jasper Martens. We're going to talk about one of the biggest pain points he had. He's the doctor today, so he's going to diagnose this issue for me. But I want to dive into what this issue, a lot of marketers have this issue. And the problem you've had probably a lot in your career is that the marketing software you had was such a headache. So what is the biggest pain points marketers have and experience with outdated platforms? What issues happen when you have something that's outdated or a software that's outdated in your marketing team?
Well, a couple of things to bear in mind. First of all, in my current role as a chief marketing officer, you're not always that close to the actual software. Your teams might work with it, but me looking at the tool itself, I might be quite distant from it. So actually understanding what the actual problem is can sometimes be quite a challenge, and working with the teams to figure out what's going on. Second part is, you might think the tool might be a little bit out of date, but what's the alternative? What to look for? And the problem you've usually got when you look at new providers or new solutions is they will shower and sprinkle lots of fancy words such as AI powered or all of the buzzwords that come with it. What does that actually mean? How can it actually enhance what you're looking for? So I think that is the biggest challenge, figuring out what's going on and cutting through all of the noise of all of the buzzwords. And often because you're a marketeer, you're not a software engineer or you're not an integration specialist, trying to work with people in the organization to figure out what's going on, what you're missing, and what the opportunities are is a challenge because everybody's busy, everybody's got roadmaps, everybody is has to prioritize their workflow. So that the last point in terms of what makes this a challenge, how do you prioritize this piece of work in the organization using the right metrics, as in by using this new tool and moving away from the older tool, I will be able to achieve X, Y, and Z, and therefore that's benefiting the organization. So that's probably even the most challenging one often. How do you get this prioritized? Because from my experience, often you will be told as marketeers, you've got an email platform, just keep using it. Looks good to me.
I think also three of the symptoms, actually, I'm going to go into like four symptoms and I'll break them down with you. One of the biggest symptoms a lot of marketers see, and I seen this because I was in marketing ops, but is a lot of softwares out there, you need really technical resources. You need, and there's a lot of engineering bottlenecks that come with that. So, how do these technical bottlenecks disrupt productivity of a team, and what are the resources you actually need to overcome technical bottlenecks in an organization?
So to answer your question on the first part is what bottlenecks do you encounter with regards to the engineering capacity which you're referring to? Maybe it's best to describe it with what we've achieved, what we've experienced here at PensionBee. So, as an online retirement provider in the UK and in the US, we help you to roll over your old 401ks in the US or to transfer your old workplace retirement accounts in the UK into a new account. We're utilizing marketing automation software or marketing engagement software or ECRM tools to really build up that personalized relationship. Now, so, the vendors of those tools will always claim that you can build hyper personalized journeys, AI powered, etc., etc. But actually, how do you build that out to the customer for the customer? How do you actually get that built and connected with the tools that really matter? So, to give you an example, in the UK and now also in the US, we work with Iterable, and that's an ECRM tool of an engagement tool, but it has to be connected to our Postgres database. It has to be connected to our Salesforce CRM and so forth. As a marketeer, you simply don't have that knowledge in terms of how to connect these things, how these actually work, the nuts and bolts. So you've got to work with probably the right specialist, often not even in your company. Often the knowledge is simply not there. And therefore, you have to then go outside and work with a third party vendor. I think that's been the biggest bottleneck in terms of how the hell does this thing actually work and how does it integrate? I know what I want to do with it as a marketeer. I've been to the conference, I've spoken to the sales team. It's been absolutely fantastic. How in the hell are we going to actually build this? And we don't even have spoken about when are we going to build this. It's actually how. And that can be a real challenge. My experience is that you can have fantastic software engineers, but if it's a tool they've never used, they got to get to grips to it. They got to get familiar with it. They got to often get familiar with the actual infrastructure, such as deep linking to within an app from an email or a push notification. They might not have done that before, so they have to learn and figure out how that works. And sometimes they just sit on it because they don't know how to ask for help, or they don't want to ask for help, or they don't know where to start. And that's been a really big bottleneck. So you get delays.
And another issue I see too, which is data headaches. I think a lot of softwares promise you these seamless integrations for data. It's always seamless. It's always going to be easy to plug into your softwares. It's also, but data is one of the lifebloods of marketing. And when you have integration headaches, it's with outdated platforms, it's really hard. So what does a seamless integration look like to you? What is seamless integration?
So a seamless integration for me is not a tool that says you've got a 360 overview and everything can be plugged into a box. The reality is it never works like that. There's always going to be something that is not pluggable, and then you don't get the whole picture, and therefore the whole tool becomes useless in my view. The best integration that works really well for us here at PensionBee is having one source of truth, which is a Postgres database or it's a Snowflake database. That should be everything should be in there. And um, a tool like Iterable that we use for our nurturing will connect to that Postgres database or to that Snowflake database, rather than either connect through Salesforce and then to the Postgres database. So it's working with somebody who knows their data sources and their data streams ins and outs. I think I've got the pleasure at PensionBee to work with Luis, our VP of data. But earlier in the journey, we didn't have a data team because we only exist for 10 years. And when I joined PensionBee in 2015, there were 5 people. Now there are more than 200 people working for PensionBee, and now we've actually got the luxury to have that person in place. But anyway, with Luis setting out the data architecture. But the best way for those integrations to work is to have a database, a single source of truth where everything plugs into, whether that's Snowplow analytics, event-driven data, whether those are plugins from social media platforms, or whether that is a CRM and an eCRM like Iterable plugging in. It all has to go. It has to seek that information, has to connect and update in that centralized database.
I actually love you that you said that because I think a lot of marketers, and it sounds like at PensionBee you have more of a modern tech stack, because a lot of marketers see as a marketing their software, their CRM, or their marketing automation software as their single source of truth, and that becomes a lot of problems. When you take it out and put it in a data warehouse, it's such a better way to manage that single source of truth, because you can have multiple fields. You're not paying for more fields. You can manipulate the data how you want to do it, instead of having to rely on 15 different softwares to be able to connect. You can just push it into one source of truth. So I love that you said that, because one, a lot of companies don't have a single source of truth, and two, they have multiple softwares as their source of truth, and then their data is all over the place and crazy. And
Yeah. I think for me, what's really important, and I come from a company before I joined PensionBee where I wasn't able to connect the eCRM to the CRM, and therefore I had to download a CSV file, upload it into the eCRM system, and then email customers a newsletter. And oh boy, if status had changed, then we were sending out. I mean, don't even get me started on those things. So I know what that looks like. So when had the opportunity to build something from scratch, I also, as a marketer, although this is not my expertise, you do need to look into this. You do need to read. You do need to talk. You need to get some advice. And having one database where all your tools can plug into is best, because this year we've moved away from an old CRM to a new CRM system. And the beauty of having the way it's been set up is that you can then unplug the old eCRM, and then you plug in your new eCRM tool. In this case, we've used Iterable now we moved away from another tool and into Iterable. That means that all of that information that's currently in the database, when you then start plugging in your Iterable tool and you start to warm up your IPs and get some of the emails sent out, syncing a database is literally then you plug in and then you can let the tool sync, and then all of your customer data that's needed or fields that are required to set flows in action come from that database. Can you imagine that if everything were hanging onto a CRM or an eCRM, it would have been an absolute nightmare. So but you do have to bite the bullet. I think during COVID, we used that opportunity to really get to the bottom of things and build out the particular way we store our data. But it's been super helpful now moving forward, because as we're now scaling up, also now into the US, we've just launched. You can see how scalable the solution is without building up tech debt or having cranky connections where things might be compromised or might not be up to date.
Oh, don't get me started on tech debt. That is hang on to the wrong platform because you want to could be set, because it's like building a house with duct tape. You at some point that foundation is going to break and you're going to have to scale back. So it's better to do it earlier. One thing I wanted to ask you, since you are a CMO, is how does a team come to you and say, hey, this is a time to change my software? How do you get buy-in from a CMO to change software? What does the process look like for that?
That's a very good question. Well, there's two scenarios really. Scenario one, help, it broke, it needs fixing straight away. That is probably not a very ideal scenario, but it is something that definitely happens in organizations. In our case, our old ECRM increasingly couldn't do crucial things, and there were some data concerns. So that's an emergency option. The more gentle, more preferred option is that your team talks to you and say, Jasper, we want to do this in order to achieve X, Y, and Z. Example, in our case, we want to send customers a push notification or an in-app message with regards to adding more contributions into their retirement accounts at certain times of the year based on their behavior in the app. If you do that, then you can start getting bigger retirement accounts. We derive revenue from those retirement accounts. Hey, there's a bottom line there. So you can actually start thinking about, well, if we can have these options available and we want to roll out these particular initiatives, that gives me X amount of revenue. That's a really good place to start, because then as a marketer, you are kind of forced, or you kind of like naturally moved into a direction where you have to showcase, actually, it's not just about sending a really nice newsletter to our customer. No. This is more about sending the right message in the right type of format, whether it's SMS, push, or in-app notification at the right moment in time to that customer to increase revenue from that customer. That's a really good place to start, because that particular project, which is an infrastructural project in a company, has to compete with a new product feature in the app, has to compete with other things that the product team might think, actually, we want this. Marketing, do you really need this new shiny tool? Well, actually, we do, because it will give us X amount of revenue. In our case, it drives retention. So at PensionBee, when you consolidate or you move your old retirement accounts to us, you've got that all in one place and you can manage that. Fantastic, right? But what then? What else? What else? Once you've done that and you're getting on top of your retirement mess and you feel in control, what else? Well, contributions or planning and that engagement with customers, that drives the retention rate. So people don't leave to a Vanguard or to another provider. So we've got a retention rate at the moment in the UK for more than 95%. Well, this tool helps you to keep that at 95% and it doesn't go down. So revenue opportunity, but also protection of revenue or a lifetime value calculation you can hang to this. You should be able as a marketer to do this. And I keep banging on in conversations with others. You're a marketer. You're not just creating creative ads. You're not just being shiny and creative. No. You actually drive revenue for an organization. You're building a brand. You're building a customer base, and therefore you ought to be showing the numbers. Management teams, often not marketeers, they're coming from banking. I need to talk spreadsheet, Daniel. I mean, that's what it is. So if marketers can talk spreadsheet, things get prioritized and done.
I love that point. I think learning to talk in terms of what the pain point of the leadership is, and the pain point of the leadership is their goal. Where their goal is drive revenue and drive retention. If you could talk in those pain points as a person who's trying to sell in the software to the organization, or change out of the old software and migrate into a new software, you have to connect it to those data points. We all know you should personalize customer experiences, but actually doing it across every channel, good luck. Thankfully, there's Iterable. Iterable uses all of your first-party data to talk to your customers across email, SMS, in-app, web, OTT, everywhere, all your channels, one place, seamlessly. Oh, and it has AI insights and features that make you feel like you have a super smart marketing partner that hustles to get things done. Personalization? Done. Cross-channel engagement? Duh. Go to iterable.com/TMM for additional resources and sign up for a demo. That's TMM for the Marketing Millennials. So we kind of went into some of the symptoms people have with the bad software. There's the bottlenecks with the engineering. There's data headaches, integration headaches. There's getting leadership on board, which is really hard, a pain point. But what I want to go is into a treatment plan, because we know like the diagnosis of a bad software. So what are some of like the top things you look at or when you are prioritizing a new platform? So what are those 1, 2, 3 things that you look at when you are going to prioritize that new platform over that outdated solution, for example?
First of all, does the tool actually do what I want the tool to do? Does it achieve my goals? So far too often with suppliers, when you look at options online, or when you look at where you could start talking with a sales team, it's always, yeah, can do that. Yes, works perfectly. Yes, we're all fine, because they need to achieve a sales target. So it's really for me to actually punch through that sales chat often and think and figure out, is this tool actually going to deliver what I'm looking to do? Or am I being sprinkled with AI powered? And it's the biggest ick I've got at the moment when selecting providers, because they will all sprinkle those words. So cut through it. Does it actually do what I needed it to do? The second point is, does it actually provide proper support? So do I actually get a proper onboarding, especially with complicated tools? Or am I basically being told, well, our tool is so complicated, you actually need to fork out extra money from a third-party provider to do so? Our previous ECRM tool had that. It was so complicated, you actually had to get that support. So do I actually get proper support from the company that I'm buying the software from? And third, can I chunk the integration into chunkable pieces? So is this a particular big waterfall into project integration that will take 6 to 8 months? Or is that something that I can chunk up in multiple phases? Like I start with the email integration. So again, with Iterable is a good example. After the onboarding phase and the IP warm-ups, actually migrating the existing email flows over into the new tool was our defined phase 1. Can we just have business as usual? Can we just carry on what we were doing? Phase 2 is the extra bit, like what was the reason why we picked this tool in the first place, which was in-app messaging and deep linking, so I can send customers from an email or push notification straight to the contribution tab in the app. Sounds like a pretty straightforward thing, but this was one of the main reasons why we actually moved to Iterable from the old platform, because we couldn't do it with the old platform. That was phase 2. So can you chop it up and then implement and see what happens, and therefore you can then iterate. So it doesn't look like a 2-year integration plan, but it can also be adapted as you get along and start using the tool. So for me, those are kind of the key things I will be looking at. And there's also there's the smell test, Daniel. There are certain tools that it's very obvious that investment goes into it. And it looks like the company is making investments to make it worthwhile. Or is it a tool that might have been bought by conglomerates, is being rebranded for that particular company, lipstick on the pig, I would say so, because the underlying tool might still look very 90s or very naughty shoulder paddy UI, and they just they brought it into the 21st century. So the first couple of points I've mentioned, for me, those are kind of very straightforward, but don't underestimate the smell test. And that is reputation. Do they invest in the tool? Is there a conference where they talk about new features being rolled out? All of these things really matter because you're going to commit to that tool for at least a couple of years because you don't want to change that all the time. So for me, that is one of those things where I generally think that's often misunderstood. Go to a conference that's organized by the provider if they've got one, and does it make sense? Are they there for the long haul?
I really like that. I think a lot of people, when they're assessing tools, they look at features, they look at, is this going to help? But that investment in the future is so important to, because usually when you're with a big marketing automation tool, you're gonna, once you've migrated into it and use it, it's hard to migrate off of it. It's really hard, and if you're not getting the support for years and years, it's really an investment to your company and could also cause a lot of headache in the future as a marketing team. So actually seeing the investment is super crucial. And the last question I really have for you is, we talked about the migration itself a little bit, but what does a migration process look like really? And then how, I think you talked about this a little bit, but how do you minimize the business impact?
How do you minimize the business impact? As in, you mean disrupting the actual tool, or is it the occupation of the resources that you need to actually implement the tool?
I think it's everything. The business impact is because obviously you're going to have things that you can't do during that time period, or
Yeah,
resource, you're going to have to change resources that were maybe meant to do a campaign, and now you have to do a migration of a software. So
yeah.
what are ways to just minimize those?
So first of all, um, get your roadshow gear on, Danielle, and we're going to promote the tool and the solution into the company with the bottom line. That's the first thing for me that's always been really important. Like, make people enthusiastic. Like, make sure the CEO of a company, for example, I report directly to the CEO. I want to make sure that she understands that I am really excited about this opportunity because I will achieve X, Y, and Z, and therefore in this case I can retain more customers and I can increase the revenue per customer. What's not to like? And really create that enthusiasm. Again, you wouldn't want to think about that initially, but that's something you want to start whispering to somebody, you want to start talking about it. That will take a bit of time, doesn't take a long of time. But if you've got the data points in the hands, or you've got the metrics in the hands, that for me is like, that's already really important. The second part is translate that into a conversation with your product and design teams. So in a PensionBee, I will have a conversation with the VP of product and say, hey, I've got this opportunity here that I want to bring to the table, and then look at the metrics it's moving and the opportunity video. It's being benchmarked against other opportunities. So it's not apples and pears, it's apples and apples. So we can start to understand what value does it bring to the business. So you can prioritize it. And marketing being quite an important value driver at PensionBee in both countries, it means that it will get prioritized. So as long as you have the metrics and the goals to go with it, then a product team can kind of understands your language, understands. That also allows you to get the time and the resources. Now, the last part of this is, once you've got it prioritized, how do you minimize the disruption? Well, in our case, making sure that the new provider that you onboard understands that you are moving away from an old provider into a new provider. So expect some flexibility. In the case of our migrations from the old platform to Iterable, we had a slight overlap on the two tools. So we were still sending out some clear communication to our customers while the new tool was taking place. So an IP warm up is one of those where you just basically have to make sure that the tool you can actually send out emails once you wean off the old platform. So a good migration plan with a bit of overlap from two tools is actually quite crucial. Now, in our case, the old ECRM tool was plugged into our Snowflake database. So we were just simply adding Iterable, plugging into the Snowflake database too, and let it sync. And once we felt confident that the first emails we send out through Iterable were all right, we can then start unplug the old ECRM tool without that disruption, because all of the data that we needed was in the Snowflake database and not in the old Marketing Cloud tool. So in terms of minimizing disruption, making sure that that's well understood, that part. But honestly, I think the first bit's harder, convincing that you want to do this in the first place, and that's where you just need to show clear value that you drive by using a new tool.
Yeah, because you have to change so many behaviors in the business. People are so used to the old way of doing things, and it's always hard to get the new way. And also, you also, like we said, have to ask a lot of resources in the company because there's engineering resources, there's product resources, there's sales resources, there's so many
Yeah.
resources, finance resources, all the resources you need to.
A lot of people will then send a PDF around on Slack and say, hey, this is a new tool and we are really, really excited to use it. No, guess what? Nobody will read that PDF. And, that Slack message will go unnoticed. I have to get my promotion gear on, and I have to jump around and run around the company and say, hey, this is what this is an opportunity. We've got this now. We actually want to move to this because it will achieve X, Y, and Z. Look at the opportunity here. What's not to like? And it becomes a no-brainer. As marketers, everybody actually wants a new tool implement or sees an opportunity. You've got to promote it. You've got to market it. It's not just for you're not a marketer for your customer. You also sometimes have to be the marketer to your own decision makers in the organization. We've got an advantage. We're already marketeers. So just wear that marketing hat and go out and promote that before you start thinking about the actual implementation.
Yeah, the 2 points I got there for everybody is internal marketing is as important as external marketing. One, and then two, when you're promoting things, each team has different benefits. So just like your audience, there's different benefits. You have to market those benefits to each product. There's a different benefits. Hey, you won't have data problems anymore, or you won't have to have patch and fix. For sales, you could say, hey, look, you are getting X more leads and X more this. But if you have the same messaging for everybody, maybe one team will care, but the rest of the team won't care. Lastly is, where could people find you, what you're doing at PensionBee, and all the cool stuff?
Well, first of all, you can find PensionBee in the App Store or on pensionbee.com. We are a global retirement provider. And like I said earlier, we help you to bring all of these old retirement accounts from your previous jobs all together in a new account. In the US, that's powered by an ETF plan by State Street. So really good investment products we offer. And we just make it really simple. So that's what we do. I am in the marketing team, chief marketing officer. Joined the company in 2015 when there were only 5 people in the room. And 1 million seed capital. We're now a global company in 2 countries, publicly listed on the London Stock Exchange with over 200 people. And we're managing $7 billion of retirement savings on behalf of 250,000 customers. So it's been a great journey to be on. If you want to find out anything more about PensionBee, about me, you can find me on LinkedIn or on my Twitter.
Thank you so much for coming on. This is super helpful. I think a lot of marketers have this pain point. I know I've experienced a lot of migrations over being in marketing ops and had to be the one leading the migration. So it was a very painful journey. So thank you for breaking it down for everybody.
Thank you for having me, Daniel.
Thanks so much for listening. Keep tuning in to hear more great insights from the coolest marketers from around the world. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and follow the Marketing Millennials podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you like what you hear, I would greatly appreciate you giving us a 5-star rating. It helps bring more marketers into our community.